Steelers fans got good news about TJ Watt in the sense that he's not going to be gone for the season, might just be gone 6 weeks. We're going to talk about that update, what we heard from Mike Tomlin on Tuesday. Also, we're going to talk about the Pitt Panthers, the football team. How are they going to build? They have a lot of injuries to deal with, all right here on the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, today, joined by Jason Mackey. It's going to be a fun episode. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jason Mackey of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can find the North Shore Drive podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are hosted. Be sure to check us out. We have episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, breaking everything down in Pittsburgh sports. Also, if you subscribe to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's YouTube channel where this is airing, you can get all of our daily episodes. We have content all the time coming out on that channel, so do check us out there. Today's episode is brought to you by Acrisure, introducing the Acrisure Fan Advantage and the power to project one of our Post-Gazette Steelers beat writers into your home or office. Using augmented reality, you can get an exclusive pregame breakdown from a Steelers expert standing in your living room. Get the latest insights on starting lineups, key matchups, and critical stats at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage. No apps or downloads, just insider access on Steelers updates at post-gazette.com/Acrisure Fan Advantage, and get a real edge to this week's action. As I said, today we're joined by Jason Mackey. He's in Cincinnati at the Great American Ballpark out there, covering the Pittsburgh Pirates in the middle of a doubleheader. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Have you ever been out here, number one?
I've been to Cincinnati, but never into the ballpark.
Okay. Go at some point. It's a fun place to watch a game. In Paycor Stadium, it's sort of a weird trip with the Steelers opening up here Sunday. A couple of us just stuck around for the ball game, and the Pirates have actually been playing some reasonable baseball. I mean, who knows what happens the second half of this doubleheader, but I've watched this team hit 3 home runs in back-to-back games and get a couple really good starting pitching performances. This has been the most encouraged I've been by the Pirates in a long time.
And some of those big names doing it too. Brian Hayes, I seen getting a home run, a guy who's been hitting for more average than homers. But really good stuff there. But let's talk about the big news in the Pittsburgh sports world on Tuesday. That was that Mike Tomlin talking about TJ Watt, saying, "Hey, we're in a lot better situation than we were Sunday, because Sunday they thought that he tore his pec, and now it looks like TJ Watt has a partial muscle tear in his pec, not a full ligament tear, which is what they were worried about. And the reports from Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and the national outlets are saying, hey, it's believed within the Steelers office that it's going to be 6 weeks or around that amount of time. Jason, it's not a death sentence, because if TJ Watt gone for the year, that seemed like this team's in a lot of trouble. But 6 weeks, even though some of those next 6 opponents that we'll go over in just a minute, 6 weeks, I think, is something they can stomach if they can just get to the middle part of the season, sticking around 500.
Yeah, Chris, I do take exception, and maybe we can debate this. Maybe you disagree with me, but I don't think it's that doom and gloom. I mean, obviously, you'd rather have TJ Watt than not. You're not going to turn down the defensive player of the year, but this sort of narrative that they're completely screwed and everything's going to crumble if the Steelers don't have TJ Watt, I don't know how much I believe that. I mean, it's a big thing, but I still think they can win football games. I think they can win football games because of their defense, aside from Watt being able to pressure people. I really like the push they got, and frankly, how their defensive backs played. Their offense needs to improve, and yes. I would say that regardless of whether TJ Watt is healthy. So, I mean, yes, I don't want to take total issue with the narrative. I understand why people are saying that, but I don't find it impossible, and maybe we are sort of saying the same thing, but I don't find it impossible for them to win with Watt out. I think their schedule, you look at it, they can go 4-2, right? At worst, I think they can go 3-3.
Yeah.
I don't think everything's going to crumble.
I'm actually with you on this because it'd be one thing if TJ Watt had 5 sacks, 2 if he had a James Harrison against the Ravens in 2007 type of game that beat the Bengals, that'd be one thing. But Alex Highsmith had 3 sacks.
Yes.
Cam Hayward had a sack. Minka Fitzpatrick had a pick 6. Akella Witherspoon, Cam Sutton, both of them have interceptions. Devin Bush, Miles Jack had really good games. I thought Ogunjobi, the whole defense to me played extremely well. It wasn't just TJ Watt wrecking the Bengals single-handedly. And yes, he's a big part of it. He's absolutely a major player. And I think against teams like the Bills, that's where it's going to come costly because you need a guy that can be just that X factor that takes over a game in a moment like that. But let's go over their next 6 games here to give the listeners and our viewers here a chance to look at that. They got the Patriots at home this upcoming week. The Patriots did not look strong against the Dolphins. Mac Jones, so far, not so sure in that Bill Belichick offense. The Cleveland Browns on the road, Thursday Night Football. They didn't look too great. They found a win against the Carolina Panthers. They didn't look too great themselves. You got the New York Jets, who just asked Joe Flacco to throw 58 times this past week. Old man Joe Flacco, like we were just talking about how old Ben is, that dude's up there as well. He's doing that. Those are your next 3 opponents. Now, the next 4 get tricky. You got the Bills on the road. That's going to be a tall task without Watt. The Buccaneers at Acrisure Stadium. I think that can be competitive and interesting. I'm not sure if the Buccaneers are all that right now. They might be by the time they play the Steelers. They didn't play too great against the Cowboys. They're one team. And then you have on the road before the bye week, at the Dolphins, which is right around when TJ Watt might be available again. And then you have on the road against the Eagles. But like you said, you're talking about, let's just take the next 6 games. So let's say even the Dolphins game into consideration. I think you're right. 4-2 has a shot there. 3-2 has a shot there.
I don't disagree with that, Chris. 3-3. I know what you meant. I have 2 additional points to that, while also thinking, like, hearing the names that you're rattling off, I'm okay thinking 4-2. I really am. Maybe that's overly optimistic because I feel like before the Bengals game, you and I were kind of in like the 8-9, 9-8 boat. I think other people were more 6-11, 7-10, that sort of thing. But I mean, I listen to those lists of teams, Chris, and I think about them being able to win them, number one. But number two, I have more concerns over like the offense in the running game than I do about them being able to win those games. Like I need to see more from the offense. I'd like to see this wide receiver group get more involved than it did against the Bengals. I'd like to see Najee Harris get more than he did against the Bengals. But obviously, you want Watt back. You're going to get Watt back. It sounds like he's going to be back at some point. Is it a concern to you? Because it is for me. Is he going to be healthy? And what are like the risks when he comes back? You know what I mean? 6 weeks is not a terribly long time to let a muscle heal. Is he going to be 100%? And is there any risk of re-injury? And I don't know that. I don't know if any sports writer knows that. But it's certainly something that concerns me.
Now, I had a talk with a Dr. Karina Maharaja, who is she's a doctor in physical therapy, and she basically told the information she gave me. She's like, Chris, I don't know what his specific injury is, but if he had a sprained Liz Frank, as he stated, the biggest concern is it cannot be the same injury. If it's the same area of the foot, that's what's really bad. But Mike Tomlin distinctly said it was not that. And he wouldn't say which foot it was because he doesn't want to give opponents hints into what exactly to target or anything. But he did give the sense that, hey, Najee Harris's injury, he thinks he can play this week. We're going to make him prove that in practice. But they said it's not nearly as serious as it looked or as people feared coming out of that Sunday game. So I do agree. He needs to be healthy. This run game needs to be healthy to sort of bring some hope to the offense because let's face it, they were putrid in this game. They found a way to survive. Like I'll give Mitch the biggest credit that I give Mitch Trubisky is that in the craziest moments when the Bengals had a free blitzer on him or they could have forced a turnover or he could have made the biggest mistake, he avoided those moments. When he was in his own end zone with a man on him, he got the ball out of his hands and it was incomplete and thrown at the feet of Zach Gentry. When the ball was snapped over his head by J.C. Hassenauer, he corralled it, rolled to his right, fired a pass that turned out to be incomplete. He found ways to avoid the killer moment that I think a younger quarterback, I'm not just specifically saying Kenny Pickett, but any other younger quarterback might have succumbed to. So I think that's the biggest thing to take away from him. And Mike Tomlin did say, hey, we did limit the offensive game plan from the deep shots to protect him, and that was specific to this game plan. But they do need to see more from him in this second game.
They do, and they need to break up the box. I mean, they need it
Absolutely.
to be more balanced if they want. I mean, if you take shots and you're successful taking shots, you're gonna thin out the box a little bit. You're gonna be able to run the football a little bit more. You're gonna create a play action game, and they haven't been able to do that. And I realize it's a tricky balance. You have to have enough time from your offensive line to throw the ball down the field. And so to me, that's sort of the magic potion here, that they need to get more time, throw the ball down the field. Trubisky needs to be a little bit better with it. The wide receivers theoretically should have the talent to do this. And when you do that, Najee Harris is going to be a lot better. I mean, but the whole offense, I mean, my goodness, it was such a slog there for a while, man. Like, some of their only plays, like, I'm thinking about the completion to Freiermuth on the last drive in overtime, or like the screen to Gentry. We're talking about stuff that's probably not, you're not going to be able to count on that like time after time, or Deontay Johnson's toe tap on the sideline. That's great. I'm glad he did that. But man, I mean, that's just not, in baseball, we would talk about something being repeatable, and that's not terribly repeatable. That's not something they should be counting on. So, I just, I worry about it a little bit, and it all starts up front. We know that.
It all starts up front. Stay tuned with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Our reporters are at the Steelers facility all week long, getting you ready for Steelers Patriots. We'll be talking about that on the Friday edition of the North Shore Drive podcast with Brian Batko. We're going to switch gears and talk some Pitt, because Pitt fans, we did a pregame show for the Backyard Brawl. We didn't get you anything on this show talking about after that win or after the loss to Tennessee. We're going to talk some updates with you here on the North Shore Drive podcast, so stay tuned. But first, I got to talk to you guys about Liquid Death. You may see your co-workers cracking open a can in your 9 a.m. meeting, but it's most likely not a beer. It's actually a new Mountain Spring water brand called Liquid Death. After establishing that there's this new crazy water brand out there called Liquid Death that looks like just like beer, they can explain to you that this is actually just a water brand. What's this water called, and why is it called Liquid Death? Well, because it will brutally murder your thirst, and their infinitely recyclable tallboy cans are helping to bring death to plastic bottles. They also donate 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. We all know how harmful plastic is to the environment and how good water is for you. So why not help both with a tall, cold can of Liquid Death? Go get Liquid Death at your local Target, 7-Eleven, or County Fair, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/shore. That's liquiddeath.com/shore. We're also brought to you by MyBookie. While the Steelers prepare to battle the Patriots, prepare your winning season at MyBookie. Some like to bet to earn. Some like to bet to make the season more exciting. Either way, MyBookie gives you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus. It's a quick and easy $250 deposit plus that puts $500 in your account instantly with that doubling of your deposit. And you can use your funds to bet on as many games, contests, and props as you want. To claim your bonus, register today and use the promo code NSD for North Shore Drive, designed to add more excitement to the games and sports that you love. Again, that's promo code NSD to double your money up to $1,000 with MyBookie. It's only week 2 of the NFL season, which means there's plenty of time to get on the action. Don't miss out. Begin your winning season today exclusively at MyBookie. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Jason Mackey. Jason, let's talk about Pitt. They're 1-1. They dropped down to 23 in the top 25 rankings after losing to Tennessee. But it was kind of, to me, like that loss doesn't crush them. That's not like when they lost to Western Michigan last year. And of course, they play Western Michigan this week. But I think any voter who looks at Pitt says, okay, you dropped a little bit because you did lose a game, but you obviously were down Kedon Slovis. Nick Patti got hurt and was basically looked like he was playing on one leg at one point. You were already down your starting running back. There seemed to be some things there, but I do think there's still some concerns about the passing, especially the passing in the red zone. I wrote about this with my film review for Monday. When I looked back, all the Panthers were 3 for 3 in the red zone against West Virginia, but all of it came on the ground, on the back of Rodney Hammond. And then if you look at the game against Tennessee, they were 1 of 5 in scoring touchdowns in the red zone, with Nick Patti throwing a last-second hope pass to Jared Wayne that got them to overtime. to me, that rhythm, whether Kedon Slovis, Nick Patti, or whoever can be the quarterback, is vital to getting them back and making sure that this Panthers team can compete in the ACC.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to back up to one point you made at the beginning,
Sure.
though, Chris. And I agree with 95% of what you said. The 5% is what I want to talk about. But
okay,
like the loss to Tennessee, man, like it stinks. It really
does.
stinks.
I'm not saying it doesn't.
I understand how everything is still in front of them, and I agree with all of that. But like I allowed myself to get to that point where like they beat Tennessee. You start 2-0, WVU Tennessee. I remember the run up to the backyard brawl, talking to like Herb Street, and I'm trying to think. Reese Davis was another one. A couple of, like the national voices for a story I did, advancing that, and they were like, well, if Pitt starts 2-0. Wins over WVU and Tennessee, just look out. Just you think about the national spotlight they're going to get. And like it was so close. It was so close, Chris. It was so close. But to the functional part of what you said, and I agree with it. I mean, it worries me if those two are unavailable. It worries me if Kedon Slovis is unavailable. Frankly, yeah. I mean, I like Nick Patti as a backup stopgap option, but I was probably higher on Kedon Slovis than a lot of people, I think, and I was really impressed by him early on in that Tennessee game for the beating he took. And not just stupidly, like he was using that extra split second to find a receiver and paying the price for it. And, I think we saw some maturity out of the young man, and it stinks that he's injured, and I hope that he gets back. And, the Pitt offense, I was impressed. I don't know what your impressions are so far, but I've been really impressed with Jared Wayne. Receivers outside of Jared Wayne, I'd like to see more. And I think it's there. I think those guys are tremendously talented. I just haven't totally seen that or seen it consistently enough, I should say. And, look, Rodney Hammond was good in week 1. Izzy Abanikanda was really, really good in week 2. But I'd like to see more consistency in the passing game. And if you don't have Kedon Slovis back there, the wide receivers need to carry a heavier load.
I agree with that entirely, especially with the wide receivers. Jared Wayne has been a wide receiver 1 pure, and I was a little concerned that he wouldn't be ready for. I thought he was, I was concerned maybe he could be a wide receiver 2. He was a wide receiver 1 in these first 2 games, consistent. You targeted him, he was finding a way to bring it down for a big play. Kanate Mumfield, however, the guy that they brought in from Akron, who was a freshman All-American last year, hasn't been the playmaker that he looked like he could be. I've seen this guy. He gets great separation. Like in that Tennessee game, he wasn't getting that kind of separation on a lot of plays, which was, I think, a big problem that they had. I think he was a big part of them beating West Virginia because he gave Kedon Slovis some big options in that game. But he needed to back it up with a second game. But, hey, he's young. He's a sophomore. He can grow from that. I think that the guy that they need to be looking at right now at the wide receiver position is Jaden Bradley. He's a sophomore. He was the young upstart last year that everyone's a little bit excited about. Now everyone's looking like, okay, he could be ready. He switched his jersey to number 7. He's feeling – I get the sense when he's getting out there, his hands are going to be more consistent. He might be a more appropriate replacement for Bub Means in that situation because they do need that. But, Jason, before we flip to the defense to talk about in the next segment for Pitt, I want to ask you, Gavin Bartholomew, that touchdown. I was sitting next to Noah Hiles, our other Pitt beat writer, and he just exclaimed, "Oh my God, what would happen?" And I felt the same thing. I'm like, you don't see that from a big guy getting up that high and then in stride, just kind of catching himself and just like, and then just dancing his way to the end zone. I couldn't believe that play, but it shows the talent that is on this team.
Man, you're not going to see a better play all season, right? Nope. I hate to be that guy, but that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. And before we flip over, I wanted to tell a story for people listening about how I took in the Pitt game. Now, you're obviously covering it at Acrisure Stadium, but I was in Cincinnati with our Steelers crew, and so we started out watching it. It was me, Jerry Dulac, and Ray Fittipaldo. We have it on in the gym, and we all got to the hotel around the same time, and like I'm running, Jerry's doing some stuff, and Ray's walking on the treadmill or whatever, and like I have it on my iPad, Ray's got it on. We're all kind of following it and talking back and forth. And then we went out to dinner at the Montgomery Inn, and it wasn't a great TV watching situation. So here we have 3 grown men sitting at a table, like eating ribs and brisket and all this stuff, and like we're all watching my phone propped up in the corner. We're watching the Pitt game, but it was fun nonetheless. You had a much better view of it than we did, Chris. But we still saw. I remember being in the gym at the old Mason Marriott here in Cincinnati, watching Gavin Bartholomew, and I did the exact same thing you did, man. So, holy crap, are you kidding me?
That was ridiculous.
Just an unbelievable play.
But I think it's another reason why, despite this loss, there is hope for this team. But I think a lot of this hope does pin on the health of Kedon Slovis. Even though, like you said, Nick Patti, like him as a temporary thing, but when Kedon Slovis was in there, this offense moved. They need him back to move more. We're going to talk about that defense in just a second here on the North Shore Drive podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our friends at Yinzers in the Berg. Yinzers in the Berg is the best place to get your Pittsburgh sports apparel. So Yinzers, listen up. With the Steelers campaign off and running, it's time to show your support for the black and gold. It's easy. They have 2 legendary shops in the Strip District, plus they have an online growing store. Yinzers in the Berg is the place to go for all Pittsburgh sports apparel, accessories, and much, much more. They'll see you in the Strip District. Check them out anytime by shopping at yinzerspgh.com. That's yinzerspgh.com for all your Pittsburgh sports apparel. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Jason Mackey. Jason, I think that the Pitt, their defense did essentially what Pat Narduzzi wants them to do in this game. In my post-game story, I talked about how, hey, the biggest things that they gave up were those deep passes. The cornerbacks weren't out of place. They didn't play wrong. It's just like, hey, when you leave guys in one-on-one coverage against guys like Cedric Tillman, who the Tennessee wide receiver that ate them up, that stuff is going to happen. But they also just went up against JT Daniels, who was a former 5-star quarterback, and Hendon Hooker, who's been a starting college quarterback for the last 3 or 4 seasons. They're not going to face too many guys like that this season. I think that with the upcoming Western Michigan game, they got Massachusetts after that. They got a bunch of games lined up for them. There's a chance for this defense to kind of say, okay, we faced 2 really tough offenses in these first 2 games, but now it's time to lock in and beat some of these teams that are still figuring themselves out. There's a chance that they can assert that dominance, and I think that's a big part of what Pitt has to do in the next coming weeks.
Chris, I'm glad you pointed it out or framed it that way because, I mean, this offense for Tennessee, I shouldn't say I hate watching it, but it's hard to watch. It's hard to cover. It's hard to follow. They make me tired.
Yeah,
I'm not even playing the game. I know. I mean, Cedric Tillman was absolutely incredible on Saturday. I mean, the kid's a stud, and I love what they do. If I'm on Tennessee, if I'm rooting for Hendon Hooker, I would be thrilled. But as somebody who's trying to keep up what they're doing and sort of process what they're doing, I mean, how many plays did they finish with? It had to be over 100, right? I mean, it felt like they were going to set some kind of record for a while. It's just every time ball tackled or back up to the line of scrimmage. The only time they took time when it was a 3rd and 5 or a big conversion down, they're going to take a little bit more time. But man, they fly through things.
I mean, but that's the whole point of Tennessee and Josh Heupel. I mean, that was also the point of Central Florida when Josh Heupel coached there. The whole point was get the other team tired, have a high volume of plays available to you that allow you to attack, that allow you to make plays. For the record, they had 42 pass attempts and 35 rush attempts. So that's 77 plays right there. That doesn't include sacks, other plays that happened there. I'm looking here real quick.
Pitt I still thought it would be more.
But you're talking about 80 snaps though in a college football game. That's still a lot to be on the field. I think the thing that made it shorter though was that Pitt's defense held up enough throughout this game. That fast-paced offense should be putting up 49, 52 points, close to what they did to Ball State. And Pitt's defense was able to kind of keep them in check. They just kind of lost out on the big moments and on some of the deep plays that Hendon Hooker threw. And to me, that's when I look back and I look out and I see, hey, you know what? Pat Narduzzi's scheme, his whole idea of leave your defensive backs on islands, it's dangerous and it works to stop the run and create pressure. But teams that have those types of quarterbacks that are experienced, can handle that pressure and can rebound from it, they can reap the benefits. And you saw Hendon Hooker just do it at the wrong moment. And maybe Jason, if Kedon Slovis never gets hurt, it doesn't matter as much. But still, it puts them in a rough position. I just think that these next few games are going to show a lot more like what this defense will be known for by the end of the season.
I hope so. I hope you're right. I want to see them sort of recalibrate and climb back, and I'd love to see them crush Western Michigan after last year. What worries me, I guess more so, if they were going up to Western Michigan coming out 2-0, like that almost, it feels like the stage is set. Like you'd go up there thinking you're just going to, exactly. And now, I mean, they should and probably do have a very sour taste in their mouth. And, you basically have to spend the entire season now climbing back to get to what you could have had with the Tennessee win, if that makes sense. Like, they've got a lot of respect to continue to earn. But I guess I look at the rest of the ACC, Chris, and I'm not intimidated by it. I don't know if that's the right word, but Pitt still is one of the best teams in there. I don't look at them and think that, oh my God, something's wrong. It's just, they had an injury to their starting quarterback. Their backup quarterback didn't get it done. There's some areas where there needs to be improvement. I think Tennessee's a pretty good team, and they're 1-1 after 2 weeks. So what? I mean, they're still in the top 25. Things are very much attainable. And I like the way Pat Narduzzi handled the post-game stuff. I was kind of curious seeing, what's he going to talk about? Because, I understand why the win is frustrating or the loss is frustrating. But he said, all of our goals are still in front of us. And people don't want to hear that right now. But it's the right tack to take, in my opinion.
I agree entirely. This is a conference that if Pitt does get back to playing at the level that I think they can, with the defense playing at a high level, you're going to beat a lot of the teams. Like Virginia Tech right now, sitting up there with a 1-0 conference record because they're one of the few teams to play in the conference so far. They can take Virginia Tech with their North Carolina. They may be 3-0 overall. I think they could take North Carolina. The biggest question, Miami has looked shaky in these early weeks. Now, they could get better, but Tyler Van Horn has looked very human-like, whereas last year he looked unstoppable at times. And you look over the way of the other division at Clemson, they're the top team of the Atlantic division, and DJ Uiagalelei is not it. And if Pitt can get to the ACC championship game and match up with him, I like their chances to bang with Clemson. So I'm right with you. Pat Narduzzi is right to think everything's in front of him because he still has a deep roster. He still has a deep defense that's talented. And if Kedon Slovis can get back sooner rather than later, they might be able to stomach him against Western Michigan and Massachusetts. That they need him once ACC play kicks into gear, and that will be a big determinant. But these might be some good tune-up opportunities for Pitt. They need to get back in the winning column. We'll see if they do. Noah Hiles will be there in Western Michigan. I'll be here in Pittsburgh getting ready to do Steelers things on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium, and then, of course, do the North Shore Drive podcast on Monday for you all, recapping what happened at the Steelers game. Jason, where the heck are you going to be? Because you're in Cincinnati right now. Do you stop breathing ever?
My man, I'm coming back on Wednesday night, writing some enterprise stuff for Sunday that I'm excited about, and I hope it pans out. I think it will pan out. I wish I could say more about it. I know we kind of planned to talk about it, but I don't want to jinx myself. So let's just say that Jason is efforting toward an enterprise piece that I think people will be interested in reading on Sunday. I think I'll see you at Acrisure. I don't know. Right. I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. I think I'll be involved in our hockey coverage a little bit, kind of breaking some news there. I need to announce that in a more formal fashion, and will do in due time. But in any case, they have a rookie tournament, and I might be doing some stuff there and need to figure out when to maybe take a day off. So we'll see. I might see you Sunday. I'll certainly be watching the game and look forward to I'll be watching Western Michigan, watching Steelers, and looking forward to talking about it again. This is fun. Same here. This is fun. We hope that you all have fun listening to and watching the North Shore Drive podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, anywhere podcasts hosted. Also, YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of the content from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. It's not just the North Shore Drive podcast. It's all of our writers, everyone. We do a lot of talk. We had a live stream with Paul Zeiss breaking down the Steelers game after it happened. That wild Bengals win. If you ever wanted to hear what Paul Zeiss thought about something, you probably wanted to hear how crazy he thought that game was. That could only happen on this YouTube account. So subscribe here to get notifications to be on when the next post-game streaming session will be for the Post-Gazette. Jason, thanks for joining me on the show. You get back to work and covering that doubleheader. I'll get back to work covering here in Pitt and Pittsburgh. We hope that you all had a great show and you enjoyed it. We hope you have a great day. Back Friday previewing Steelers Patriots with Brian Batko right here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down below in the description.